Hey Mama, welcome to episode 5 of What's the Plan? Personal Growth for Busy Moms. My name is Sharon and I am a busy mom that is so excited that you are here. Welcome. So on last week's episode 4, we talked about why I am obsessed with my map book. And if you didn't have a chance to check that out, you may want to go back to watch that episode first because it'll give a lot of context to today's episode. Today we're going to be walking through my quarterly review process. I want to share with you what it is, how I do it, and how you can start implementing the system in your own kind of reflection routine. So all you will need is your map book if you have one. If not, again, check out that previous episode, but you can really do this wherever you like. There's no hard and fast rules about it. So to get started, what is a quarterly review? First of all, before I started having my own business, I didn't really understand quarters. I was a teacher before this, so we worked in trimesters. When people were referring to like quarter one taxes, I was like, what's a quarter? I mean, like I knew what a quarter was, but I didn't use it as a unit to measure my own life. So this is like a fairly recent thing for me to start to break up my year into these 4 chunks throughout the year. And I love it. Now that I'm doing it, I wish I had discovered it earlier. So if the idea of like quarters is new to you, just know that you're not alone. So a quarterly review happens every 3 months where I sit down with my map book and with my calendar and just take a minute to pause and reflect on the quarter behind me and then think about and plan for the quarter ahead of me is basically what it is. I keep my quarterly review in my map book, and at the beginning of the year, remember I told you that I set up my map books for the whole year. I set up all 4 of them at one time. You can see this is how I set mine up in my notebook. I do it in the last page of the notebook. The last like double page in the notebook is where I write the prompts for the quarterly review. And I have it in the back. It's all set up so that, you know, even when I go to do quarter 3, it's all ready to go. I don't need to prep it at all. And on the first page, I write things that I am excited that I accomplished that quarter. And on the second page, I write things that I'm excited to accomplish in the next quarter. So one looking back and one looking ahead. So why do I do a quarterly review? I do a quarterly review for 4 reasons. The first reason is it really helps me with my annual goal setting. I love me a good goal setting process, and I have found that the more I go back to reflect on the goals that I set at the beginning of the year, the more likely I am to actually reach my goals. So doing the quarterly review forces me to have a check-in point to check in with what my goals were, decide if anything needs to be tweaked or changed, and then project forward. So for example, this year I am using Power Sheets for the first time. Laura Casey's Cultivate What Matters. You can check her out on Instagram. It's pretty awesome. I'm loving the process so far. I'll explain more about that in a future episode. But I have set 8 goals for the year through that. And that sounds like a crazy amount. It's more goals than I've ever set, but they're time-dependent goals. So some of these goals I have not touched on purpose. They aren't until quarter 3, quarter 4. I want to remember that they're coming, and the quarterly review helps me with that, but there's nothing I need to do right now. So the quarterly review helps me kind of plan ahead. When I do that at the end of June, I'll be like, oh shoot, I was going to actually start working on this one, and I'm going to prioritize that. So the first reason why I'm obsessed with quarterly reviews is it helps me to reflect on my goals, my annual goals. The second reason that I love it is because it really forces me to pause. You may relate to this, but I'm the kind of person that I love a to-do list. I love checking off goals, but I'm like, check, did it, next thing. I don't take the time to pause and celebrate and be like, dang, I did that. That was hard. That was a lot of work and I rocked it. Yay, good for me. I don't do that. And I need to, because Mama, we work really hard. We work so hard, and we need to give ourselves credit, because credit is due, and we need to be proud of the hard work that we put in, especially on our personal growth journeys. So don't be afraid of that. Don't shy away from that, and take the moment to pause during your quarterly review to celebrate. The third reason I do a quarterly review is because it really motivates me for the quarter ahead. What I mean by that is on the first page, you're reflecting on what you did in the previous quarter. I find that list, I'm always like, oh, there's gonna be like 3 or 4 things on there. Never have there only been 3 or 4 things on there. I put everything on there. I celebrate the heck out of myself in that accomplishment page. So I build myself up there and I'm like, dang, look at me. I'm awesome. I did this, I did this, I did this, I'm rocking this. And then I look at the next page, okay, thinking about the next quarter, and I get hyped up. I'm just so excited to think about what's to come, and I killed my goals this quarter, so imagine what I'm gonna accomplish in the next quarter, and it just gets me really excited. So the third reason I love the quarterly review is because it gets me excited for that quarter ahead. It also helps me to be proactive about the quarter ahead, and that's my fourth reason why I do it. It helps me think through some of those goals that have been on the back burner and be like, oh, that's coming. For example, I am hoping my 5-year-old is going to kindergarten in the fall. So I am hoping to start writing again daily in the fall. Right now, I'm maxed out. I'm running 2 businesses. There's all the things going on. But I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I see myself with a little more flex time, and I'm hoping to get back to that writing goal in quarter 3. So in quarter 2, I will be reminded of that because I can be proactive and start to plan things ahead. I do my quarterly review like the week before the end of the quarter. So it gives me a chance just to kind of process and it's sort of like my break in between the 2 quarters to think about what I've done and what's coming. So now let's dive into how to actually do this process. On my podcast, on the episode that lines up with this one, I'm going to really walk through the nitty gritty. I'm going to share with you my whole list. So if you're into that, if you're into the authentic, raw, unfiltered content, definitely hit the podcast. Do not miss it. But if you were to just show me generally what you do and let's move on with it, this is for you. So what I do when I sit down to do my quarterly review is I set aside an hour. That might sound like a lot to you, but you really do accomplish a lot in that hour and you can always tweak it. I just set a timer so that I'm aware of my time. Sometimes when I start looking back at my annual goals, I get sort of lost in the weeds and I get distracted. So it helps me to set a timer. You do you. But I go ahead and set up in the back of my map book those 2 pages. So on the first page, I write, what am I excited about this quarter? And on the flip side, on the next page, I write, what am I looking forward to accomplishing in the next quarter? Just write that at the top as sort of my title. Then I take my calendar. I use a Google Calendar with my husband, and I just start writing. I just start writing down ideas that pop into my head of things that I've accomplished. I start with the accomplishments first, and I try to stay on that page so that I don't get distracted. And I write down anything. It can be work related. It could be financially related. It could be personally, routines with my family, even events. If we, pull off a surprise birthday party or something that goes on there. I really don't limit myself at all because again, I don't think moms celebrate themselves enough and I think we should celebrate our wins. So I wanted to share with you my quarter 2 reflection for March 2022. Things that I am excited I accomplished this quarter. I just got started with this list just to show you kind of the beginnings of it. And again, I'm going to dive deeper into it over on the podcast, so be sure to check it out. But the first thing I was excited that I accomplished this quarter was I read 25 books. I am an avid reader. I read very quickly. I'm a fast reader and I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So my 2022 reading goal is 150 books. That's up from 125 last year. And I'm excited I read 25. It wasn't quite my goal, but guys, I read 25 books. That's not something to be discounted either. So even though I haven't reached my milestone goal, I still put it on there as a celebration. The next thing I'm excited that I accomplished this quarter was I had my highest income month to date in my photography business. I am a family photographer. full-time, actually. I was going to say on the side, but a full-time. That is my full-time job. So I am very excited about that. That's a huge milestone in my business. It means a lot for me and my family. So I'm, of course, going to celebrate that. Hopefully there's more of that to come. And then the third thing I wrote down is we survived COVID. Our family finally got hit with it in January 2022 after dodging it for almost 2 years. And it kicked our butts. It was like not good. It kicked my butt. My family was fine. I was a mess. I didn't get out of bed for 8 days. It was bad. But I wrote it down because we did that. We did that together as a family, and I'm proud of us, and we overcame something and we bounced back and all the things. So don't be afraid to write down things like that aren't necessarily quantifiable, or my 2021 goal was not to get COVID. They don't have to be related to your goals, just whatever happens throughout the month that you're excited that you did. So then hopping over to the other side, things I'm looking forward to accomplishing in Q2. Go ahead and look at your calendar for the next 3 months and think about what you have coming up that you may want to be thinking ahead about. So my goal by the end of Q2, that's the first half of the year, so I really want to have 75 books read. That means I'd have to read 50 books between today and the end of Q2, which is a little intimidating. We'll see how it goes. Again, this is kind of like a vanity metric. I don't have to hit this, but I do want to be reading more personal growth books and pushing myself to be a lifelong learner, model that for my girls. So I'm going to write that down as maybe a bit of a stretch thing, but it's something I'm excited to accomplish in the next quarter. The next thing I wrote down was more of a business one. It was a successful launch of my field mini sessions. I do mini sessions a few times a year, and I'm going to be launching the field ones in a different format for the first time in April. So obviously my goal is to get those fully booked, and so writing it down actually gets me thinking about it, okay, so when am I launching that? Let me plan backwards, see how I'm being proactive here rather than reactive. So that's the idea behind that. And then my last one is have a relaxing California getaway. We're hoping, fingers crossed, the world stays, somewhat sane and we are able to travel. We're hoping to take a trip to California to relax and get away, see some family. So again, being proactive rather than reactive, that sort of sets the trigger in my mind of, okay, I want to have a relaxing getaway. In order for me to relax, I need to have a list. I need to know what's happening with the dogs. What are we bringing out on the plane? Those things make me feel better. They make me feel more confident and focused that I have a to-do list and a deadline. So thinking about those things now actually saves me a lot of stress further down the line. So that's just a quick sneak peek into my quarterly review planning process. Again, there's really no right or wrong, but just whatever feels right. This is the way I do it. I feel like it's pretty simple. It takes less than an hour for me to do. And again, I'm going to be walking through the entire process on the podcast. So if you go ahead and search What's the Plan? Personal Growth for Busy Moms on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, you will be able to find this episode. And then next week, I'm super excited for this. We are actually going to dive into the idea of systems and why I use systems instead of goals. If you are interested in following along between episodes, you can find me on Instagram over at Growth Coach for Busy Moms. This week, I'm going to be sharing some more behind the scenes. You'll actually get to see my quarterly review. So if you don't have a chance to get to the podcast, you can check out what it actually looks like unfiltered over there. So I would love to hear from you too. If you want to drop a comment below just to let me know you're watching, or if you have any questions about the quarterly review, feel free to send me a DM. And I hope you have an awesome day, Mama. Bye.